People shouldn't be talking about their exes on dates. If people are doing that, I call it dating suicide because it's like, you don't want to talk about your ex. Why do you want to hear about their ex? And then they don't want to hear about your ex. So usually if people talk about an ex, to me, they're not available. It means that they're freshly out of a relationship. They're still healing, and they care enough about them to bring them up. That to me is a red flag. And I would kind of back away and say, thank you so much for this date. I don't think it's going to work.
This is episode number 508 with Marlisse Testa, the pitfalls of modern dating. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Last First Date Radio, where we believe it is never too late to go on your last first date. And if you would like support on your journey to lasting love, I wrote a book called Becoming a Woman of Value, How to Thrive in Life and Love. I almost forgot the title of my book. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the cover here. It's filled with 30 chapters. They all have a tip, a story, an exercise to help you develop the core confidence to show up, stand up, and speak up on your journey to a loving life and adding more full value to your life. And you can find it now on Amazon for Kindle or paperback. I'm also writing my second book, which will be released sometime this year, and it's called Choice Points in Dating. So look for that when it comes out. Every week we bring you a tip from the book. This week's tip is step number 9. Love is your birthright. This was a shocking concept to me when I first heard it, that we all are deserving of love, that we all are born as love, with love. Even if that hasn't been your experience, it is your birthright, and every single person on this planet deserves to love and be loved. So if you have a limiting belief that says it's not for me, it's not in the cards, I challenge you this week to shift that and really tell yourself, it is for me. It is for me. And look for the ways you already have love in your life, because we often have love in many ways that we don't even realize. Before I bring Marlisse on, I just want to give a shout out to my Facebook group. This is a really beautiful group for women over 40 who are looking for lasting love. It's not a place to come and complain and whine and vent. There are plenty of groups for that. This is a group that is actually structured to help you grow on your journey to lasting love, and it's called Your Last First Date. So join us at Your Last First Date. And now for my guest, Marlisse Testa. She has been a psychotherapist in Boca Raton, Florida for over 20 years. She is trained in trauma and also in nutritional and integrative medicine. And she is a mental health professional, a qualified clinical supervisor who enjoys helping people heal from their past to find the healthy, happy love they deserve. She has a book coming out this year, which is already in pre-order. It's called Stow Your Luggage When Dating. And in that book, she shares a unique set of tools for successful dating without bringing all your old stuff along with you. And we're going to be talking about that today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Why did you write this book, Marlisse?
The reason I wrote this book is because not only have I been in the field for 20 years, but I've also have, friends and family and myself. Dating is always a conversation. Everyone's either, especially with this day and age, people are getting divorced so much that everyone's back out dating. So I have a technique that I use in my therapy sessions for people who are dating, and I help them, and they usually find their healthy relationship person, which is great. And I guess people always ask me, why don't you help more people? Why don't you put this in a book? Why don't you get this out there? You could be helping so many more people. And, I always think about it, but I always hear it. I always thought about it and I always hear it. So eventually what I did is I wrote the book. Finally got it on paper. So now I could send it to everybody and help everybody.
I love it.
So
it can only help a limited amount of people in person, and writing a book definitely helps you help more people, and people who also don't go to therapy and don't have access to coaching or therapy to help them. It's a great way to get started. So let's discuss the pitfalls of modern dating. That's the topic of today. What are some of the pitfalls that you've seen?
I was classing them into like several areas. Like my book goes into 5 different parts, but there's 3 really significant parts of dating. And the first part is knowing who you are and having really solid self-confidence. If you get out there and you start dating and you're not sure of who you are, or you're still healing from an old relationship, or you're not sure of what exactly you're looking for, what exactly you want, you're not really going to be able to find what it is. And I think a lot of people getting out of either a marriage or another relationship tend to people like, just get back out there and just date someone else. And they're not realizing that they haven't like really completed that healing cycle of figuring out who they are now, evolving from the past relationship and identifying what it is that they want and who it is that they want by them side moving forward, which is a huge step to miss. So that's the first step, I would say. The second one is healing from your past. So knowing that you've had all these relationships, now you know what you don't want, healing from them, which is important. But in fact, learning what it is that you learned from those relationships to use them to guide you into your next, hopefully forever vibrant, healthy relationship. And the third would be knowing the field, knowing the scene, meaning like it's really important to know how to read and understand people by asking correct questions. And I get into this in my book, and I use it with my clients, is that there are people who are unavailable, and you need to know who's available and who's not available. There are people out there that are not capable. Either they're people who have disorders, or people who have addictions, or people who are not ready for whatever reason, or people who've had a lot of traumas. So we need to, at the beginning of dating, we need to really not only have a nice time and meet people, but we really need to ask the right questions to determine who these people are and what they could bring to the table, and how healthy are they, and how evolved are they. And I think people a lot of times get swept up in people's looks and maybe the chemistry that's going on, and they don't realize that that's a very small part of the dating. It's really not the big picture. And so I'm trying to help people ask those right questions and understand what they are and why they're so important, because that's a pitfall right there. So those are 3 pretty big pitfalls.
Those are really important. So I think people don't always stop to really see who they are now. And I see this a lot with men who go out and date. I think more women that certainly my main client base is women, and they are looking for help. They're reading the self-help books. They're going for therapy. And a lot of men they're separated. They get out there and start dating. And that's okay as long as you're learning from it. But a lot of them just keep kind of haphazardly dating, and it can be it's on us as women to know if that person is viable for you. We can't change the other person. I used to do that. I was like, oh, you shouldn't be dating yet, you're really not ready, and nobody wants to hear that.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, I think it's equal. Like, I think I see equal men to women. The interesting thing about my book is it's for men and women. So it's really not for one or the other. And I found that very hard to find when I researched dating books. When I was getting mine out there, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that there were ones just for men and just for women. I'm like, what about the one for everybody? So this book is kind of for everybody. And I think that a lot of people make the pitfall of not stopping, because I think it's difficult to stop, to actually feel the pain and realize what it is that happened and being able to sort it through. I think that's hard for people. And I think that's why they just jump to the next one, because it's easier to feel good again than it is to feel that pain and sort that through. That's that uncomfortable, evolving feeling. But it's important for everyone to do that, even if it's hard.
What are some of the good questions to ask to know if somebody is available?
Great. That's a great question. So one of the ones that has always worked that I've used, I've had friends use, and my clients use over and over again, is the question, are you ready to get married again? If you ask that question, people are going to give you a very pronounced answer. Because if someone's not available, they're going to freak out. Because they're not ready at all. And they're like, oh, I'm never getting married again. Like you could see right away, their body tense up. So usually that's a good one, because if someone's really evolved and really secure in themselves and really wants a healthy relationship, they might not necessarily want to get married, but they'll be very in tune to that question. They'll say something like, I might not want to get married right now, but I'm open to having a relationship or getting engaged. I really want someone in my life. So that's a very good question to ask. You'll know, like, right off the cusp with that answer where they're at. Another question is, well, kind of like not even a question, but as you listen to people talk to you, if they talk in like either like a we or a future with someone, like people who are not ready, their conversation is going to be more shallow and more tied to themselves. When people are ready to find that person to share with, they're already going to be talking about, like, well, when we, or I'm looking for that person to have this with, or I want to do this with someone, like that. You could tell that there's room. When there's people who are not available, there's no room. It's kind of like they're very singular. They're very kind of protected, and like everything's kind of shallow.
Yeah, I want to talk about that one because I have a client who just was ghosted by a partner of a few months when they had a conflict and he just disappeared. He was very future focused. Oh, we'll do this in the summer and we'll do this next year and I'll help you with that. And so some people will be future focused and actually not really be ready to commit to a healthy relationship. So I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yes. Okay. So that goes into a whole nother little realm there. So that rings a bell for a personality disorder. So yes, in the words, and so when I say dating, my duration of dating is a year. So I classify my book as a year. Like, I feel like when you're dating, there are certain steps at certain times, but you usually date someone till like a year, and then a year marker where you decide if you're going to be together forever or not. Like, but there's things that go on. So I usually say it's in the first year. Now, if you're on first, second, or third date with someone and they're like, we're going to go away and I'm going to fly you to Paris, and that's not real. You know what I mean? That's a little, that's not, that's not what we're looking for. That reminds me of kind of like almost a narcissistic personality disorder. Somebody who's love bombing you and kind of sucking you into a fantasy. Real people have a life. Real people don't want to rush things. People who have a good, healthy sense of who they are want to take their time and have weekly dates, and things are realistic. Yes, I would like someone in my life. Yes, I would like to see myself traveling with someone. That might be the end of what they're talking about, but they're not flying you to Paris next week and buying you a Ferrari. So the fantasy we have to be careful of, because there are people who run around and do that. And then when we hear those type of fantasy type of words or phrases, it's a really good time to really pull back and ask yourself if that's really a healthy person or not. That gives me a red flag.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, it wasn't so love bomby. It was actually a pretty normal transition from first date to, dating more regularly to being exclusive. And they took their time. It was just that the conflict ended it and he wasn't
Right.
willing to talk it
Okay.
out. So he was
Right.
conflict averse and
Right.
turned her
And that
words around.
happens. Yeah, that
Yeah.
happens. Unfortunately, sometimes people think that they're where they are and then they realize they're not. And
Yeah.
we can't, there's no crystal ball. So I mean, I guess the good thing about your client who had this happen to her is that she had that experience. It was good. She put herself out there. She put herself out there for love, which is good for her. And the second thing is, now at least she knows that he's not ready and she can now find her healthy partner. So it's kind of like he stepped out of the way and realized he couldn't be that person. So good for him for stepping out of the way. And now she could actually find her person. So
Yeah.
trying to
I
find
agree.
the positives in that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to take the time to heal and also learn, as you said before, like learn from each relationship that didn't work out. So let's talk a little bit more about that, like healing from the past. What are some ways for people to get started with that healing process?
I generally ask people to start from the beginning. I mean, they should really just think about all their long-term relationships. I would say anything over 6 months is considered pretty long-term. And, it's kind of like I call people like we're our own superheroes. I mean, we really know what we want because we've had this experience that has made us really good at wanting to know what we really want because we've seen those pieces in everybody. So if you go through like a timeline of your past relationships and you write down the pros and the cons are the things that you don't want and the pros are the things that you do want, so that the red flags are the cons. So like if somebody, you were like, oh, I was dated somebody and they were really not supportive. Every time I needed their support, they were never there, but you know what? They were really, really affectionate. So I really want somebody who's affectionate, but I really don't want someone who's not supportive. So when you meet someone and you kind of figure out how they are and see if they're supportive by throwing in things that maybe they could support you with and see how they respond. That would be a red flag if they're not supportive because you already rode down that road. You were in that rodeo. You didn't like it. So it's kind of like you have to use all the cons as red flags because you don't want them, and all the things that you liked about all your past relationship as pros for you to look for again. Obviously in an ideal world, you're not going to find them all. And that's where my list comes in, where you really look for the top 5. You write down the 10 things that you really, really want from your partner, and then you circle the 5, and those are your like non-negotiables. So it's trying to realize that there are things that we're going to have to bend on, and as we get older, we become more imperfect. So we have to figure out where we can be more adaptable.
Those are really important. I think people don't see the similarities or the patterns until they start to do that list of who have I dated, what do they have in common, what do I not want to repeat, what do I want to repeat. And so I think the good thing is that you chose these partners for good and bad. Some of it was because we have to heal from our childhood relationships, our attachment issues, whatever those things are. If we can identify them, then we can start to heal them.
Well, definitely identifying them is good. Like you brought up childhood. Yes, we all have childhood issues. We all have relationship issues. But once you realize what they are, and I call those the triggers, because, that stuff stays in our body forever. I mean, we're never going to really heal, but we can identify them and say, that's mine. That's mine. That's my issue. I'm sorry. Or, let your partner know that so they can be more sensitive to you. I mean, the more that you understand yourself and what areas create your body to get upset, then you know how to handle it, and how your partner, you could teach your partner how to handle it. That's why evolving in between is so important, because then you're 10 steps ahead on why you do what you do and how you respond and how you act. And there's a chapter in my book that I talk about the triggers and learning what your triggers are and how to be able to take an old trigger behavior and put in a new response for that behavior.
Yeah, that's such an important thing, recognizing what you get triggered by. And a lot of people just are outward focused and it's all their fault and I didn't do anything wrong. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. You can listen to over 70 million songs and thousands of playlists and stations. Plus, you can now stream your favorite podcasts like Last First Date Radio. You can listen to any song, anytime, anywhere, on any of your devices, your smartphone, your tablet, your PC or Mac, Fire TV, and any Alexa-enabled devices like the Amazon Echo. Get Amazon Music Unlimited for free for 30 days. Just head on over to getamazonmusic.com/lastfirstdate to learn more and claim this offer. Let's talk about baggage. Everybody's got their stories, and a lot of times people will share their whole past on a first phone call or a first date. And it's like, oh, and let me tell you about my hard childhood and my eating disorder and my, the death in the family and my crazy mother. And so, there's a time and a place to share these things. So how would you help people to take their baggage and know what to share and how to share and when to share it?
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to switch it because I actually call it luggage because I feel like baggage is dirty and luggage is clean and classy.
Okay.
So I changed it because I wanted people to kind of think about that because baggage feels so like, oh, we all have this baggage. So anyway, so the luggage, our beautiful luggage that we're carrying with us, which is beautiful because it makes it's like kind of like that grandma's quilt. It's our past, and our past is a beautiful thing. So I want it to be looked as that because I want people to use their past in a positive way. So um, how and when. So yes, so I tell people to be really careful about their past. I don't think really we don't want to put old past wounds into new beautiful relationships. So we want to kind of leave out as much as we can. There is information that we want to know, like how long have you been in relationships? How many relationships have you had? Like it's like demographics, like maybe how many times have you been divorced? Maybe who ended it, but not why. How long have you been divorced? How long were you married? How are your family relationships? How many friendships do you have? How long have you had those friendships? So information to show the ability of that person to have long relationships, the ability, like how long do they stay in relationships? I mean, everything is information. So you want to ask information questions that are going to help you identify more about your partner, but I think you want to really leave out, like, people shouldn't be talking about their exes on dates. If people are doing that, I call it dating suicide because it's like, you don't want to talk about your ex. Why do you want to hear about their ex? And then they don't want to hear about your ex. So usually if people talk about an ex, to me, they're not available. It means that they're freshly out of a relationship. They're still healing, and they care enough about them to bring them up at the table or wherever you're at. So that to me is a red flag. And I would kind of back away and say, thank you so much for this date. I don't think it's going to work. But I think that people should I think that, finding someone that you like, usually the first 3 dates, you kind of hone in if you really like this person or not. Because the first date, I always say, like, everybody's nervous. And it's kind of like, I always say, do it again, because you just don't know that first date. It could be who could be nervous, what could be said. Second date, you're more comfortable. Third date, you kind of know if you like or not like this person, unless like something was really bad from the beginning, like a really big red flag or something. But I usually say go to 3. And then by 3, you know if you really like the person. And then as you keep dating, you want to give like little things about yourself. You want to start putting them out slowly, see what they do with them. Kind of like a friendship. I always say, like, there's some people who give all their eggs, and there's some people who give one egg at a time. I think it's better to give one egg at a time, because then if you're giving all your eggs, then if they don't treat you right, then you're really kind of hurt.
Yep.
So it's keeping, you're getting to know this person just like they're getting to know you. And the less is more. Like, if you're going to be with this person forever, you have forever to tell them all about your childhood. You have forever to tell them all about your relationship with your mom and all about what's going on for you now. Like, you first want to make sure that this person is worthy of your companionship before you start giving them a lot of information, because then you're going to feel like that you gave them so much, and that if it doesn't work, that you kind of wasted your time, and you kind of did.
What people don't realize is when they overshare, first of all, it's exhausting. It's you've shared so much that you can walk around and have one of those like emotional hangovers. And Brene Brown talks a lot about people earning your stories, and I fully agree with that. I think that you share just enough, and you get more vulnerable as you become more committed. And so one of the things I have my clients do is to create the levels of story, to actually write them out. Because if you want to share, like, why did you get divorced? It's not, my wife was a horrible person and she wiped me out and
Right.
I'll never trust women again.
Right. That's a red flag.
Yeah, exactly. So to be able to say that in a very short sentence, like, we really wanted it to work. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. Now I'm ready to
Right.
find love again. That's it.
Right.
The next levels are for when you get to know someone. So how would you have somebody answer a question like, why have you never been married?
Just like you said, like at the beginning, you really want to keep it sweet, sweet and simple. Like, I guess I haven't met my person. jumping on what you just said made me think of one of the things that a pitfall actually that people do is a lot of times people will ask you, what are you looking for in a relationship? That usually happens like date 1 or 2, possibly 3, but it's very much at the beginning. They'll say, what do you want from a relationship? You have to be really careful on how you answer that question, because there's a lot of men and women out there that will pretend to be that person for a while, and then they realize they can't hold it up, and then they bail, kind of like what happened with your other woman, possibly. And so I always tell people never to give that list. You know your list. You know what you're looking for. No one else needs to know that list. You could just say, I'll know when I find it. And I know what I'm looking for. And, you could say, like, so far you seem like a great person and I'm looking forward to getting to know you. So you really want to kind of like shift away from answering that question for those people who are just trying to be the person that you want because they want to be with you, which is a lie. We want authentic people. We don't want people to pretend. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, I like that a lot. I think that especially if you're dating somebody who's really mentally unwell, or a manipulative person will take your words and use them against you, basically. They'll mirror everything you want, even though they're not that person.
Right.
And so that's a dangerous thing.
Right. But even just people who just want to date you, like if someone genuinely likes you, they'll kind of bend and do that just to kind of be with you. And then and I've seen it over and over again with my clients. And then all of a sudden by the 3-month mark, they become someone else. And they're like, this is who I really am. And they're like, who is that person? Like, they're like, well, that was what you wanted me to be. And it's like, well, we just waited 3 months on the guy that I thought was great. And now you're giving me this, so it's like, not fair, not right. So it's just better not to answer that question. Just keep that one in your pocket.
I like that. I think, what I'm hearing is also the importance of authenticity. I think on both sides that we often do people pleasing to try and be liked. And it presents a false image of who we are. And that's never good. It's never good for either side. And so be okay sharing your quirks and stuff. I mean, I have a client who went on a date recently with a guy she met online, and he was like 100 pounds heavier and had a huge white beard. He didn't look anything like his photos. And she was really pissed, but she sat through dinner with this guy who she didn't really want to be with. And so presenting yourself in a false way in any way, whether it's your photos, your profile, who you are, how you show up on dates, bad thing to do.
Right. Well, people are kind of coming around to that now, as far as like, because we all have these video cameras, the phones. So like a lot of times people are doing a quick video call before the meet and greet, which I think is good because, no one wants to waste anybody's time. I think it's respectful to be able to say, hey, on a video call, or send me a picture of you right now, so I think more people should utilize the technology that we have in order to save that time, that in that hour that she was out with this gentleman, she could have been doing something for herself instead of, being lied to. So.
Yeah. And she was afraid of being rude to him. I said, he was rude to you. He betrayed you completely.
Completely. Like there was like, people think that like, then you'll change your mind once you get to know them, but it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't.
It does not. So let's just talk for a minute about mindset in dating, because what I see a lot is people are fed up with dating. They really feel like it's just not even worth it. I'd rather be single than keep doing what I'm doing. And I would love to know if you have any tips for getting into a healthy mindset about dating.
First off, is that it's kind of like all therapy, we're constantly changing mindset. So I actually did put that into my whole book. So my whole book, the whole duration, I'm actually changing your mindset as we go, because there's so many areas to change. I feel like as we get older, we get a little bit more rigid, and I guess people become a little bit more less adjustable. So I actually have a chapter called Be More Adjustable Like a New York City Pretzel. Like we actually like having dating is a mindset in its own about getting out there and meeting new people, which means meeting new learning new things, doing new activities, going to new restaurants, going, so someone might say, let's go here. It might be a half an hour away, but that's something new and adventurous. I think we need to open up our minds to when we're dating for like adventure and fun rather than become rigid, like that's not near me or that's too far away or I don't know if I'm going to like that. Like when we were 20, we did all that stuff without even thinking. And as we get older, we get more rigid about it. And I think that we need to really open up our minds. So when we're ready to date, we have to, we want to have new people. We want to introduce them to things we like, but we want them to introduce things that they like so that we can learn who they are and what they like. Anxiety and excitement are the same feeling. So a lot of times when I tell people when they're on the phone and they're being asked to do something that might be uncomfortable, instead of feeling anxious about it, remind yourself that it's exciting. You like this person, they want you to go, paddle boarding. You might not have ever done it, but that's fun. That's exciting. Like bring out the child in you and go and have a good time. So it's just really, opening up your mind. And if you feel like you've gone on a couple dates and you feel like you're not going to meet that person or you're starting to have a lull, I always tell people, take a dating break. There's nothing wrong with, I'm going to get myself off all the sites. I'm going to tell everyone I'm taking a break and just do you again for a little while. Get your energy back up, get yourself back in a good space, and then go back out there and do it again. But once again, have that open mind, be open, but know how open you want to be, having healthy boundaries. So how far is someone that you want to date or don't want to date, and be realistic of what that is. So obviously if they're saying drive 2 hours, no, but like drive half an hour, sure, so have a good idea of what you will say yes to and what you will say no to in your in yourself, in your mind, and what you feel is appropriate.
Boundaries are really important, and establishing them beforehand. And this came up a lot during COVID when everybody had different requirements, or, the whole political world that we were living in, and how do you want to talk about politics? Do you not want to talk about it at all? Those are all things that we have to decide beforehand. And if we can do that, we have more control over the whole experience. We don't feel like we're being sucked into experiences where we feel uncomfortable or out of alignment with who we are. So I love this. And I think that taking a break when you're burnt out is also really, really important, because otherwise you're dating with a terrible attitude and people can feel it. I mean, I think people think, oh, he didn't know that I was, pissed off while I was on a date, or,
Right.
she had no idea that I found her really unattractive from the minute I met her and I tolerated a 2-hour date with her.
Right. It's like dating burnout. I mean, like anything else, like you have to give yourself that time. And it's funny because I actually found a long time ago, I used to do this dating seminar, and I was actually trying to find the stats on it again because I wanted to use it, but I couldn't find it. But I read somewhere like years ago, and I think it was the Huffington Post, but it takes guys know in 7 minutes if they like a woman, and women know in 22 minutes. So usually like on dates, like if you meet someone on internet dating, and then you do your meet and greet where you meet for a cup of coffee or an ice cream or a cup of tea to see if you like each other because you haven't ever met face to face, I always say keep it to 30 minutes, like literally, like set your timer on your phone or have somebody call you in 30 minutes. And then that's it. That's all you have, because in that 30 minutes, you'll know what you need to know. They'll know what they need to know. And then you go from there. And then you would follow up with a real date. If you guys like each other and found the commonality, but it takes us 22 minutes. So that's why I say go at least 30, so that that if you really like that person or not. And if you don't, then don't waste your time, because time was one of our most valuable things in our life. So, and I would talk about that a lot. Like whatever you do, don't waste your time. You can't get that back.
I agree. It's the precious commodity.
Yes.
So as our final question, and this is something I ask everyone, what are your final words of advice for anyone who wants to go on their last first date?
My final advice is, please find yourself and what you want before you start dating. Please be very patient. Dating is an art of patience. You can't rush through it. You have to take your time. If you need a break, take a break. And remember to all the things that we talked about today for you to work on yourself. Make sure that the partner you're talking to has done the same things. And there's a couple of things in my book that could guide you through both of those if you're ever interested. But that's my advice. I wish you all the best of luck.
Great. Marlisse, I know you have a free gift for our audience for the first 15, and tell us what that is.
So as I brought up to you in this podcast, that lists are very important. You can't go shopping without a shopping list. The same terminologies. You can't go out there and find a good partner without knowing what you're looking for. So in my book, I mentioned that I want you to put down 10 things that you must have from a partner that you feel, could come from your pro-con list that we just talked about as well. And then I want you to circle 5. In the free gift, I'm going to have a poster with a dry erase pen where you could fill that out. And as time goes on, that list might morph so that you could change it. It's a changeable list as you grow and as you evolve, so that you could kind of use that as your guide when you start dating.
So to get that list, go to your website, Stow
Just go
Your
to my
Luggage
website, right?
when dating.
Stow Your Luggage when dating. And you want to click on Get in Touch. And when you click on that it will take you to my email, and you just put your first name, last name, your email, and put your address. And then once I get that, I will send you out your gift.
Great. So the email and the actual address, the physical address.
This way I can mail them the gift.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing such important information. This has really been a pleasure, and good luck with your book and your therapy practice and all the good that you're doing in the world.
Great. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And thanks everybody for listening. As always, if you love our show, please share it with others, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And here's to your last first date. If you are ready to get unstuck, gain new tools, become more empowered, and finally find your last first date, I'd love to talk to you. Fill out an application to be considered for a complimentary half-hour love breakthrough session at lastfirstdate.com/application. That's lastfirstdate.com/application. I look forward to talking to you soon.